podcast.
Thank you.
I
Thanks for
came.
having us.
Hey, no problem. I only have interesting guests in my podcast. I always like to start saying that, and that's why you guys are here. I came upon you guys in a video. I was doing the YouTube, going down the rabbit holes on YouTube as we all do, and you guys have a little video about hacking the ES4 scooters, right? And you go into very detail how to change the software, do all this stuff, and the reason I was interested is because we just bought a giant truckload of them, and they're brand new, not brand new, they're unused. And I was like, well, we're gonna need to figure out how to do the software. We're gonna need to, right? So I was looking and I was doing that, and I came on your thing. But as it turns out, when you start looking into your other videos, you guys are pretty busy doing a bunch of other stuff, right? Why don't you explain to us what you guys do on your YouTube channel? What sort of projects are you working on?
Yeah, I'll let Ollie start with this one.
All right, all sorts of crazy stuff. I mean, we haven't documented most of our most recent projects because it's just so much work. I mean, you'll know of anyone, how hard it is to edit together those videos and just 10 hours of Premiere Pro for 2 hours, not even 2 hours, 2 minutes of content, It's just so much effort. But I guess our videos are primarily about our projects through middle school, early middle school, early to mid middle school, and those sort of entail. Did we document? We didn't document the gas powered scooter, but just sort of anything that really caught our attention at the time, sort of whatever we were interested in, just building at the moment.
Yeah, we would spend a lot of time. Yeah, I mean, we would spend a lot of time in Ollie's dad's garage because his dad has an amazing, workshop in the garage. So, and we live a few houses away from each other. So we would just, hang out in his garage and build, work on different projects. I think our first project was a potato cannon.
Yeah.
That was the first time we actually recorded something that we worked on and uploaded it to YouTube.
Ah, that's cool. So you guys been doing this for a while because now how old are you guys?
I'm 18.
Yeah, I'm 18. I'm actually a freshman in college now.
You're in college now, yeah. So then you guys started middle school doing this. Yeah, so you guys you've been at it for a few years. That's pretty cool. So are you guys, any of you guys, either of you guys doing pursuing a career in engineering or something like that?
Yeah, I'm actually studying electrical engineering and computer science right now.
Computer science.
But I'm trying to focus more on the electrical engineering aspect.
That's
yeah,
cool.
I've recently gotten into designing PCBs and stuff like that. I used to be mostly interested in the software side, but hardware is super cool now. So yeah, I've been just trying to focus on that.
Oh, that's cool. You're ahead. Let me tell you, you're ahead of the game. I just learned how to design PCBs last week or so, 2 weeks ago. And I've been going crazy, all these ideas. And I'm like, oh man, you could do this. Now
I know,
I'm trying to use PCBs for everything now.
I know, PCBs are so enabling for projects.
Yeah. So how about you, Ollie? What do you
I'm
what are
still
you
a high
pursuing?
schooler, so I also just sort of self-teaching myself how to design PCBs. But I don't know, in high school, I had a big drone racing phase. And as I look towards, I've applied to all my colleges now, so I'm just waiting to hear responses, and a lot of them are engineering colleges. So hopefully getting into mechanical or electrical, and then maybe mixing in some CS there. All the colleges are different, and sort of it depends, how they mix the different majors. But I hope to get a well-rounded engineering education because I'm not exactly sure what I want to do. Yeah.
I'd say you try everything, right? Because you never know. I think that's how it always works out. I never thought this is what I was going to be doing when I was growing up. I didn't know. I had no idea. I thought I was going to be a rock star. I thought I was going to play guitar, because that's what my interest was at that time. But I never thought I had interest in all this other stuff, right? But yeah, you never know. The only way for you to ever know is to try it and to be there and to kind of explore it. So yeah, if I'd say any advice, is just try a bunch of things, whatever piques your interest, you're doing. And that's the cool thing. You guys are young. You guys have a head start, I think, on a lot of us. Because a lot of us that we were older were like, man, I wish I would have done this when I was younger, because then it would have been cool. So that video with the scooters, that's pretty in depth. So luckily, I don't know if I want to say luckily, because I I don't want to say that I'm afraid of learning stuff, but I fortunately for us, like most of those scooters that we got, they kind of worked out of the box. All you have to do is kind of the batteries are like dormant there because they've been in the pallet for I don't know how long, many years or months or whatever, and so then the BMSs are off, right? So you have to like put power back, not on the port, the charging port. You have to go into like the battery terminals and then put power, and then once you wake them up, then you can charge them. And I don't know what the deal is with the software that they have in there, but it almost doesn't seem like it's the one that these ride-sharing programs or companies install, right? Because they usually have a lock, right? So they're probably usually are like normally locked, and you have to unlock them with some software, right? These ones are just, they're on. Like once you power them on or whatever, they just go, and there's no way to lock them. So I'm like, oh, let's just sell them like it. So we started selling them. We started riding them around, and I didn't have to go through the thing. But like that video that you did seems like it's pretty advanced, right? Like you have to do a bunch of things. You have to download programs and then code, and then you have to take some of the PCBs and solder some leads on the thing. And so I thought, like, man, that's gonna be tough for customers, you know, to do that, right? It's like you have to be kind of hardcore. What kind of response have you had to that video?
All sorts of comments and questions. I guess first thing I should say is that I'm not a developer. I didn't come up with anything in that video. That was just sort of me being like, hey, I'm in like the depths of this, Discord scooter hacking server. And why don't I just make a cohesive video so like your average Joe who has an eBay account and a soldering iron can sort of do it for themselves. So a lot of the stuff going on in there, I personally myself don't even understand. It's sort of just following steps and getting it to work. So
it's a lot of steps.
Yeah,
it's very complex.
Lots of different steps, but
it's a pretty complex process. And yeah, it's like you put it all together, you aggregated all this information, put it together. Now I think anyone can follow it. I mean, you still need to be patient. You still need to be able to understand things, right? My biggest thing is that I needed like a PC or an Android, and I'm like, I'm on a Mac. Like, screw that, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
But definitely for people that want to try and wake these up, and there's a lot of people that are trying to do that, right? Because there's a ton of these.
I mean, we've gotten hundreds of comments on that, and then hundreds of thousands of views. I really didn't expect it to like sort of take off. I guess the scooter companies with their ES4s, the whole ES4 fleet just sort of imploded when everyone realized you can just hack these things. People were taking them off the streets and stuff. I was getting mine at police auctions. You could get 10 of them for like $70, just like just piles and piles of scooter. And then I don't know, I've seen photos in LA where they just have like claws just picking them up in the dumpsters. Okay. It's just like they're all over the place.
So I'm buying them from the guy that remember, because that story went crazy when the claw was coming out and grabbing all those e-bikes and stuff. Okay, that was a leaked video from a recycler.
Mm-hmm.
And so that recycler got in trouble because they shouldn't, right? Because he was getting paid for them. But I think the companies, the ride-sharing companies got such bad PR because of that. Because why are you, like, perfectly good e-bikes and scooters? Like, why are you destroying them, right? And so I'm buying them from that guy, right? That guy has thousands and thousands, I mean, truckloads kind of thing of this stuff, right? And so I'm buying all that stuff, and I'm trying to find reuse, like, find different applications for them. And so
I've been following your channel and all the cool things you're doing with the batteries and power walls and stuff like that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, because I'm thinking like it's trash to these companies, right? But it's not trash. Like a lot of these, I'm like, how can you get a truckload full of like unused scooters? Like you shouldn't nuts. Go. Yeah, you're like, you shouldn't go back to China, because that's what is always happening. People like recyclers usually don't know what to do with this stuff, and they don't know who to sell it. So the only ones that were buying for many years was China, and then they would put it in a ship, in a container, and it would all go back to China, right? And then over there people know what to do with them. They're like, oh, let me just hack it. Let me, flash the software and then put a new sticker and ship it right back to America, sell it to us again. So yeah, that guide, I think, is probably very helpful to a lot of people. Yeah, because like I say, there's people buying them all over the place. There are there's billions of dollars that were invested in those sort of things. And the thing is, they're still out there. I think they still have some programs that are available that are current. So they, for the foreseeable future, we're gonna keep seeing them come
With
in.
the ES4s?
No, so they're different models, right? I know they're the e-bikes, and then they're like 2 generations after of the scooters, and they're a little bit harder to hack. I know in the hardware side they're built a lot better, and so they're like the one batteries that we got. We got some like almost 10,000 of these batteries from one scooter, and the battery itself is off. Like you need like some code, like a digital key from the controller to be able to wake up the battery, or the
So
battery.
like the battery has like an integrated PCB or something, a controller.
A BMS, yeah. So battery management system. That's the thing that kind of keeps them like from catching fire or over discharging. And so yeah, so they need some kind of code. And the cool thing is like in those same forums, you know, which one did you frequent? Is it like Scooter Talk?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I think it's just scooterhacking.org. Whatever group runs that site.
Yeah, there's a few of them. There's not even one. There's like a bunch of them.
Wow. Huh.
So in those, someone figured it out, and so we got the code. Now we're like, you know, I had to kind of freshen up my Arduino skills, you know, coding skills, and then we're like hacking and we're writing like this code on Arduinos to try to get them wake up so that we can build our own, you know, e-bikes and stuff and whatever you encourage more on that. America just buying stuff. And
for sure. And also,
away.
I think when you know how to fix something too, you know how to repair it as well. And I think that's something that's also important. So, you know, the consumer doesn't just become another source of waste. You know, like you can repurpose everything. I know at least, you know, once I stopped finding scooters at the police auctions, I started salvaging absolutely everything. Like all of my scooters and controllers have been like built and rebuilt from salvage parts so many times over. Like there's no waste, you know. Because like controllers at the police auctions are like a couple bucks each or whatever, right? Because you just get them with a scooter. But now online they're like $80. So when you have that sort of price difference, you know, you're pretty motivated to, you know, try to fix everything you can.
Yes, yeah, because you also had a service, right, where people would send you stuff, and then did a lot of people send you stuff, and you're doing it?
Yeah, I mean, we've probably done a couple thousand by now.
Wow.
So.
Okay. Yeah, so you're set up to do the hacks, do the thing, flash the software, get it back to, and what you're doing is you're getting it back to a retail version of that software, right?
Yeah, so flash, change its serial number, and then update it to the latest version of stock firmware.
Okay. Yeah, because this particular product was available for the retail customer from Ninebot, right? Or Segway or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then also they sold it to these companies like Uber and whatever, Lime and whatever, all these other companies. And then they installed their own like proprietary software in there to be able to lock it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's weird because I don't know what we got on ours because they come straight from Jump, which is Uber. Ours that we got, and so for some reason these didn't get used. I think they were like either too late, they like updated or whatever. The next version came out, and then they were like, "Well, these are the old ones. Let's get rid of them." And then I know that Jump got out of that, or Uber got out of it, and they sold that whole division to someone else. So then they have the wrong logo, you know. And so even if they're unused, that's why. So we're like, "Oh well, let's just put them on people's hands," you know. And so we're selling them super cheap. So there's a lot of people buying them, and they're gonna use them and stuff. And the batteries, there's so many of them. It's crazy. But what other projects have you guys done? I know that Brian mentioned that he'd seen a video where you guys were doing like a rocket engine or something, or a jet engine. Was it a jet engine or a rocket engine?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure we ever published anything about the Pulse Jet, did we?
Yeah, so we've been like, more recently, we were working on a Pulse Jet. I don't know if you know what a Pulse Jet is. It's kind of like a solid state jet engine. And it basically uses the geometry of like the combustion chamber to like get continuous combustion. So yeah, anyway, it's pretty easy to build one of these things. because basically all you need to do is just a welder. You need to just weld sheet metal together. So we bought like a cheap welder off of eBay, and we kind of just taught ourselves how to weld. And then we like started by making small models of this pulse jet, maybe like 1.5 feet in size or something. And then we eventually just scaled up to like, I don't know, like a 4-foot version or something.
Okay.
And it was, yeah, it was insane. Like it was just like propane powered. So we would set it up on like a kind of like a, I don't know, we had some kind of stool or something that we had a clamp on. So we'd clamp the pulse jet to the top of the stool, and then we just had a tank of propane, and we would just, like run this thing, to test out different geometries. And we got it running pretty well. The only problem was that we couldn't get it to like keep, so like we had to use an air compressor to start it, and we couldn't get it to like keep running for very long after we took away the air compressor. And so that's why we were testing like different engine geometries. But yeah, like we never made a full video about it.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, but that's probably what you're referring to.
Probably, yeah. So you're saying, so you use propane and it goes into this chamber, and then when it ignites, it expands. So that's why it should create the flow, right?
Thrust, yeah. And then what happens is that after the gas basically leaves the combustion chamber with a high enough momentum that it creates a slight vacuum.
So it
in the
pulls
combustion chambers. Exactly. So it pulls new fresh air in. Yeah.
I see. So it's pretty simple because there's no moving parts basically.
No moving parts.
It's just the geometry of the chamber. Oh, I see. But you guys needed a compressor to get that momentum started, and then I see. So you need to tweak it a little bit more so that eventually it's like a ever flowing thing, right?
Yeah.
We sort of had to abandon the project.
Yeah.
The fire department showed up like several times, and the neighbors were not happy at all.
That's true, yeah.
So, I mean, this thing screams. It sounds like a jet engine. Like,
it's insanely loud, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, really? It's loud. Why would it make noise?
I mean, it's just
fire and
expansion of,
I guess it's a controlled explosion, so yeah.
Yeah.
Is that, I want to know, it's like, is that like who's the other big YouTuber that made one and then he put it into like a little, like a bicycle or something?
Yeah, it was Colin Furze. That's actually, that was our inspiration for trying to do it.
Okay. And he also, like, didn't get a lot of thrust from that thing, right? Like, or
he had to, like, use a lot of propane to get even a small amount of thrust. So, like, the efficiency is very low.
Yeah, and it's also because of the fuel, right? I mean, rockets don't use propane; they use
kerosene.
Kerosene, right? Yeah, it's kerosene, and they mix it with other stuff, and right, like so. Then they create this much more explosive fuel that will create.
Well, just the energy density is much higher.
Yes, yeah. Oh, that's cool. But that was fun. You guys had fun developing that. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy advanced, things that you're getting into. Not everyone could say they build an engine, right? Even if it's the simplest kind of rocket engine that you could build.
It was very much one of those projects where it was like jank it till you make it, just like duct tape here, like tack weld this, just throw it together, put propane into it and light it up and see if it works, I mean, it wasn't an exact science, and I think, a lot of people are scared of welding, but if you just buy like a $200 welder online and just like, get practicing, it's something anyone could do in, a weekend or so.
Yeah, welding is that like super scary, when you think about it. But then you're like, once you get it, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I blew a hole through there. Okay, let's lower the power. Okay, that's how I am, because I also know a little bit of welding, right? But I want to learn TIG welding, which is like the next version that you can do these. But it's also it's very scary. It's like there's so many different rod types, the tips, the cups, I'm like, I don't even know where to begin, But once you get going in there, once you do it.
Right. I mean, there are like so many different levels of advancement, but like honestly, to do even simple stuff, like you don't really need to know anything pretty much. Like you just buy a welder and get started.
You'll figure it out. And it's a good example with these scooters, because there are some that are giving us some errors, like some error codes. And then I go, let's just build them. Just keep building them, put them together. Eventually, you'll start gathering the patterns. You're like, oh, this code is this thing. Oh, this code is in that thing, And yeah, we're starting to figure that out. So my guys are starting to do that, right? Like, okay, they're advancing. They're not stagnated there. Because one day they came and told me, man, all these scooters are bad. Like, the lights on the batteries are not waking up or whatever, and they get this other code at 57 or whatever it is. And then the next day I went there, and then they're like, oh, no, we figured out. They're all good. We figured out. So yeah, it's just you got to get there and do it. I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people. It's just doing it. Just getting started. But you guys
it can be scary. Yeah. It can be scary because if you don't know where to start, it's like kind of daunting. But yeah you just got to do it.
Yeah, and you guys.
And that's why I think it's important to
is that I can do that. If they can do it, I can do it. I can figure it out. So is that and you guys are growing on a different era than me. Like we didn't have YouTube when I was growing up, right? So you'd have to go to like the library and like books, and you're like, I was never a fan of doing that. I could never find the books that I wanted. I didn't know how to search for them, so I just had to figure out my own way, right? And it worked, but I mean, with the internet, it's such a. I mean, you guys don't even think about it. It's like second nature.
I know. Yeah, like the speed of information is insane. Like how fast it is nowadays.
You could just learn whatever you want. I mean, like whatever. Like you're going to college, right, or university right now, right?
Yeah, I'm at UC Berkeley.
UC Berkeley. Those classes are online now, right? Like a lot of these courses are. Right. You could just watch them. I mean, you won't get the credit. But you can learn
they're
the
all
information.
all the recordings are just on YouTube, like literally just on YouTube. You can look them up. So yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, so you guys have such an advantage in that aspect. The fact that you guys started doing this in middle school, right? A lot of kids are not doing that, right? Like, what were your friends doing? Did you guys hang around with a lot of like-minded, or did you have friends that were only playing video games, or were only like bookworms? They were only studying stuff, or like?
Yeah, I mean. I don't know about. I think Ollie probably had more friends who were doing this kind of thing. I did not. That's for sure. I don't know. I felt like my friends were probably just doing more normal, like middle school things. I don't know.
Yeah. So I always like to say that like there's two eras, two eras of your life, right? Like. It's the time before you know that you can make stuff, and then the time after you know you can make stuff. Because then when you're like, oh my God, I could just make whatever I want, I mean, within reason, right? But definitely, you're like, I need a machine. I need something that helps me, whatever. I'm working on a machine right now so there's all these e-bikes that also we bought a bunch of these wheels. And these are expensive. They're like a couple $100 if you wanted to buy them. But we're buying them for nothing, so we're selling them pretty cheap, right? Like $45. So people are buying them, and it takes us a long time to first, like a box is too expensive. You're like wasting like $5-10 or something by the time you're done boxing this $40 thing. You're like, no, and it's taking too long. And then you're stuffing a lot. So now it's like, how do we do it faster? Not that, which is you shrink wrap them, right? But now to shrink wrap, and it takes a long time. It takes 2 people. And I'm like, I'm just going to build a machine. So I'm building a machine right now that's going to spin the thing, and you just shrink wrap, right? But then I posted a video, and then obviously in the comments are like, you should make also the wheel turn this way, rotate as it's spinning, so that you don't miss, any part. And I'm like, you're right. It needs to do that. Because then if not, you're going to have to physically take it off, rotate it, and then redo the thing. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to use some skate wheels. I'm going to put it in this thing, and it's going to rotate this. So right now, I don't know, have you guys used that? There's like this material that, oh man, what is it called? It's like X-rail, I think it's called. It's like in a shape of X, and it's like an extruded aluminum.
Oh, thing. Yeah, like extruded aluminum.
Yeah, 80-20. Yeah.
It's not what it is, but it's like the form of an X, and it's got like little.
Yeah, I know
you put like little T-nuts. Yeah, and so you can basically, it's like Legos. You can form anything on this thing, and it seems pretty daunting at first too, because you're like, there's so many parts, and you can go about it in so many different ways. And you're like, how do you do it? So the only way to do it is just to buy a bunch of it and just start playing with it, right? So that's what I'm doing right now, and it's pretty fun. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I need to do like grown-up stuff, like because run this business and stuff, or can I do just play with the stupid X-ray? Like, and then 10 minutes later, I'm over there playing with X-ray, even though I have to answer emails and do all this other stuff, right? But it's pretty cool, the time that we're living, I think, and I think you guys are ahead. What other projects have you guys done that seem that would be interesting for viewers?
I guess I could talk about drone racing. That's something that I haven't really documented very much, but I don't know. Here's I just have these around. Here's a frame that I designed and then CNC milled out of carbon fiber. And drone racing is also one of those things where it's like, wow, they build and race their own drones. That must be so complicated. And like, once again, what it really just comes down to is like, can you type something into Google and solder, basically? And then, when I got into it, it was like, okay, these stock frames are cool, but what if I start designing my own? So I spent a good part of my high school career designing and racing drones, and I wasn't super good at it, but I really liked the engineering of it, and I thought it was super cool.
He was pretty good. He was pretty good. He's being modest.
All right.
Yeah, and it's cool because you put cameras in there so you can navigate, right? And
yeah, you low latency. These goggles.
Yeah. And they have to be low latency because you have to pretty much know if you crashed or not. You can't be like, they're usually like black and white, right?
Huh?
They're usually black and white, those cameras?
No, they're analog. So, I mean, when video gets really sketchy, they can go black and white sometimes.
Oh, I see.
I'm not exactly sure why. But yeah, you can notice a difference between like 5 millisecond latency and 20 millisecond latency. Because, I mean, I got one of mine up to 120 miles an hour. And when racing, I'm consistently going 80. So, if you're trying to fit through a 5-foot gate at 80 miles an hour and then, spin through and hit the one on the bottom, like, a fraction of a second matters. So.
Wow. How do you know? Because I have a little drone, right? I have like a whatever commercially available drone. It's the smartest drone that I think is available for, retail people. It's the Pro, I don't know, the DJI one that's got cameras all over the place. It literally doesn't let you crash into the wall if you wanted to. Now, somehow I still managed to crash the other day, but I don't fly enough. I only fly whenever like I need a shot, and it's like absolutely necessary. And I only like take it out, put it up there, and then get my shot, and then it's on the ground and it's in my bag. I'm like, that's it. I'm not fly because I'm usually trying to get a video done or whatever, right? So every time I take it out, I'm a mess. Like I don't know how to navigate, and I'm looking at the little screen, and I thought like, oh, I'm looking out here trying to navigate through like whatever things, and then I'm like, I just need to just look at the screen. Like instead of trying to do it, I'm like just look, but I just can't make that transition where like I know where I'm at in 3D space just by looking at that image. And that image is pretty good, by the way. Like now they're pretty good, and I think they're pretty low latency enough, I don't know, to be able to do that, right? With these, I'm not like flying 80 miles an hour for you. Like I'm usually doing really slow because for cinematic uses of you gotta go slow and smooth and stuff. But I still can't do that. How do you do that when you're going 80 miles an hour?
Yeah, so I mean, with the DJIs or at least, or like, the Phantom, the Mavic, the Inspire, their photography drones, you're not really flying the drone as much as like a really software assisted drone. That's right. Like with these drones, you can't even take your fingers off the stick. Like everything is totally manual. You spin one way, like a stick movement forward isn't go forward, it's rotate forward, which means you also need to increase your throttle. So like after just getting enough practice, you sort of just learn how to like mix the controls. Like when you turn, you need to increase throttle, yaw, as well as roll, and stuff like that. Right. So you sort of get used to just the general mixing of it. And at least for me with the DJIs, like I have a Mavic and I've been trying to get better at it. And I was like, because I mean, I've almost crashed that thing so many times, even with all the camera sensors and stuff. I was like, okay, I can fly racing drone, I can fly photography drone, right? But like no matter how many times I would be like, redo the same shot over and over again, I just like couldn't get it because it doesn't want to behave how I want it to. I'm used to having that total control over the drone versus like it slows down for me at the right rate and like all that stuff. Maybe it's just something where if I had started with that, I would have gotten better at it, but
Yeah.
or
So
I just need to put in more time.
I originally built a drone, and yeah, you're right. You're actually fly. It was so hard that the best I could do was like make it hover. Like that was the crown of my achievement there. I'm like, oh my god, it's not falling. It's not like, because then you just lose control of it. It was kind of it was like a DIY build with like that whole thing, right? And you had to put a lot of parameters in there and sensitivity of the sensors and stuff. So I didn't know if I ever got. I would tweak it and tweak it and tweak it, and at the end that was the best that I could do. Basically, hover without crashing. And then after that, I got a Phantom, and then I'm like, oh yeah, these you don't have to fly them. They're flying on their own. You just leave it there, and it'll stay there, and the wind will come and will knock it a little bit out of the thing, but it'll change course and it'll adjust or whatever. So I'm like, yeah, you're not flying. You're just telling it where to go. But yeah, it's a weird thing. I always think like, how do you go through obstacle courses and stuff when you're flying that? It's you feel like
get used to it, I guess. I mean, it's not that bad once you just get used to it.
You
it's
just
just
have to do it enough.
With driving, you just need practice, I guess.
So it's like second nature to you now.
Yeah, you don't really even think about it. Like, at least in my experience, I mean, this sounds a little cheesy, but the best way to race is to not think about racing. Like, honestly, not thinking about having a controller and just looking through the camera and being like, okay, where do I need to go? And not giving it too much thought is like the best way to do it. And I'm not sure if like other racers feel like that. I'm definitely not like a professional. I mean, there's some people that just go so fast that you're watching their videos and you're like, this has to be sped up. But then you see like the timer on the corner of their screen, which is counting. And it's like, that is not sped up. That's real time,
Real time.
And I think they might be doing a similar thing where it's just sort of just like instinct. Once you get used to doing the controls, you're like, this is how I need to make this turn. You just like do that control, right?
Yeah.
Or that input.
Yeah, and they get pretty crazy because I saw some video of like a car that was drifting, and there's a drone that is going around in circles. And you're like, wait a minute. Okay, so granted, car is not going that fast because it's drifting, right? But this drone must be going just super fast. And the control that the shot had, it was pretty amazing. You're like, nah, this is CGI. And then you're like, no, that's not CGI. That's a real drone. You could tell by the vibrations. You could see by the vignetting on the camera because you have to use pretty light cameras, right?
Yeah, GoPros.
And then you have to tear them down and take all the extra weight sometimes. You ever did that?
Some people, that's like a new thing. At least when I haven't really been flying in like a year or so. And back then everyone would be just like, oh yeah, just strap your Hero 6 to the top with a Velcro strap. But now I know people are, I'm not exactly sure what they call them, but they're basically gutting their Hero 8s and whatnot and just sticking like the PCB with the lens on top and powering it with their lithium battery. It's like, looks a bit sketchy, but as long as you don't crash, you should be good,
Yeah. Yeah, you're getting rid of absolutely every ounce that the camera doesn't need to stay on. Sometimes they even take like the little buttons. So there's like a little PCB that's got the button and stuff. So you turn it on and then you take it off. And then you don't have controls. But it's on and it's recording. So you're like, let's go. And they can get some crazy stuff because now it becomes like a really light, agile drone, right? Camera that's flying.
Yeah, no, the whole micro quad thing, I mean, a long time ago, or not really a long time ago in drone racing terms, like 2 years ago, everyone was like, 5-inch quad. So 5-inch propellers was the way to go. Like, this is a 5-inch, but, here was me with my 3-inch because I was like, this 3-inch is so maneuverable. And, I got to nationals with a 3-inch and everyone else is doing 5-inch, so I didn't have the top speed, but I could cut corners a lot cleaner. And then like just recently there's been this, they call them Cinewhoops, where they have like propeller guards over them and they're 3 to 4 inches and they have one of those gutted GoPros on top. And I think people are sort of starting to realize the potential of super tiny quads as opposed to like medium large size quads. I mean, that's not really for racing, but I know I've seen people of course modify them so you can race them because they're just inexpensive and light and very maneuverable.
Yeah. Wait, so the bigger ones go faster?
Yeah, 5-inch definitely goes faster. I think DRL broke the world record with a 6-inch. I mean, also the larger your propeller, the more efficient it is too. I mean, generally speaking. So yeah.
So big. So the sweet spot it's bigger. It's
Around
Maybe
5-inch at least is
about 5
what
inch.
sort of the industry is standardized on. I don't know anyone who races 6-inch. I've seen a couple of them on occasion, but definitely no one races 7-inch because the gates I think are 5 by 5 feet. So you're trying to fit a quad where you got like 7-inch propellers swinging on either side. It's going to be pretty difficult to throw
Yeah.
that through.
And then it's a heavier machine, obviously, so then it takes longer to stop and to go and to turn, probably, right? It takes more
For
energy,
sure.
probably,
Yeah.
which then bigger battery, so then now you're even heavier. Catch 22 situation going on.
Yeah, for sure.
That's good. Yeah, and you're going through those batteries really quickly, right?
Yeah, 2 minutes, and then they come down and they're like boiling hot. Some
They're
people's
hot.
they start smoking as soon as they come down.
Yes.
Really putting those batteries through a lot. So
Yeah, so you guys use LiPo, right? Do you know what the C rating is in those on the ones you
I
use?
think standard now is about 120. That'd be like what pros use. So that being said, a lot of manufacturers like exaggerate that. I think I was running 120C batteries before, and I'm watching my ammeter, and this is like a 1300 milliamp hour, and I'm only going to like 90 amps, and 120C should imply like that's 120C constant, like 200C burst. That should imply that 120C or 120 plus
200
amps, this battery should be fine constant. But
Yeah.
it's coming down, and it's just super hot. So some of it is definitely a little twisted from the manufacturer, but yeah, I imagine they've been holding up to about 90 amps. So
That's crazy. Okay, so for people that are listening to this, talking about batteries, that's literally like a dead short.
basically,
Very
yeah,
close dead short. It's probably like 1 ohm. I don't know what the load is if you put it's probably a 1 ohm load or something.
yeah,
Uh,
super low.
Yeah, and so you're saying it lasts about 2 minutes for you to remove the entire energy that's stored in that battery. Yeah, that's why lipos are pretty amazing. Like, there's no other batteries in the world that can withstand that sort of abuse. How many
Yeah.
cycles do you think you get out of them?
Usually the batteries get destroyed long before they've reached the end of their cycle life, just from hitting a tree, and they just get
Oh, I
stabbed
see.
through.
Oh yeah,
Or
because not only are you abusing them by shorting them every cycle, but yeah, they're also going 180 miles an hour or whatever. Like
yeah, I once hit one against a goalpost and it turned into a V, and it actually still worked after I pounded it back, but it was a little questionable safety wise. So the ones that have lasted though, not too many. Maybe 100, 200. People are generally saying though that you get around 200 before they start going bad, but obviously they break from just physical abuse long
200
before
cycles.
that. Mhm.
Yeah, which is pretty low. Yeah, I always estimated. Yeah, you get like 50 cycles out of these because they could do it. I think that's the thing. They could do it, but they're boiling at the end of that, right? So that's usually like when we're rating batteries, right? Like the batteries have a spec sheet, and the people are like, how do you come up with those specs? And you just test them. You load them with different loads, and then you look at the temperature, and if it's getting too hot, obviously the battery's not happy, right? So that's when you say like this is a 1C or 3C battery. It's when you loaded it with 3C, the temperature stayed below a certain threshold. The threshold of safety, basically. So that's how they test those, right? So I know they say like, oh well, lipos can do 100 Cs or whatever. Well, they can, but not for very long. Like they're dying. You're torturing that battery. That poor battery's like, ah.
For sure. Every watt of heat you're throwing off is also a watt that you couldn't put into your motors, right?
Yeah.
So I know at least when looking at 18650s and 21700s, I was specing out like a long range quad a while ago, and just from some other projects, like what I sort of define as the capacity or the current, the maximum discharge current is, I like to say, okay, whatever discharge current you can consistently discharge at such that you maintain 90% of the rated capacity. Because sometimes, I think the Samsung 50E, for example, which is a 21700, I think it's rated for something like 30 something amps. But in reality, you could only really take about 15 out of it, such that it actually has, 90% of its 5,000 milliamp hour rating. If you actually go at 30 amps or whatever, it's only going to have, half or, 3/4 of its capacity. And when you really, think about that on a large scale, one battery, okay, that's a couple watt hours. But if you're doing with kilowatt hours and you're losing a quarter of, a kilowatt hour to heat, 250 watt hours to heat, that's a lot of heat, right?
Yeah.
So it starts adding up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I know, like lead acid batteries have that purifier effect that you have to kind of work that, and lithium you're supposed to not have that, but you kind of do because of that, because of the heat and the losses and the thing and everything. It gets lost everywhere, not just in the battery, but in the cables and right. So, yeah, you're right. Were you able to do a long range?
Yeah, I don't
Thing?
have it with me right now. I think I've actually salvaged it. But yeah, I got one that could go out a couple miles. And I just saw recently that, I mean, long range back like a year ago was defined as like, oh, you got a quad that flies like, 13, 14 minutes, right? I mean, I just saw someone now got one that fly 55 minutes. Like this is more than DJI. Phantoms are just crazy, crazy range on that type of thing. So for a race
Yeah.
quad, 55 minutes, I think he was cruising at 40 miles an hour. That's pretty good.
Whoa.
So
Okay,
yeah.
so yeah, so I'm like, you can get an hour if you're just if you're going slow, but you're saying he was doing 40 miles an hour. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And he did it with lipos, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, lipos. So the ratio of like payload that this little drone can carry was high enough that you can carry that extra battery in there to keep going.
Yeah, I don't
And
know
it
how
was,
he spec'd it out exactly. I know it was like a bunch of custom stuff. Like he had to drill out custom 6-inch propellers that were designed for different motors, and a lot of experimentation I imagine went into it. But
did you ever see that video that Casey did where he was flying around? They did this drone that's massive. Like it was enough to carry a human. Like that's how big this thing
oh
was.
dang, no, I haven't seen it.
And he went. Where did he go? He went somewhere where it was snow, and he basically got on a. He got on a what is a snowboard, and then this drone was towing him.
Wow.
and
That's
and then he
impressive.
would like hit like a thing, and then he would like go flying, and he'd be like just flying, like whatever, like what's that lady with the umbrella or whatever, but he was dressed as Santa, and then eventually the drone would come down, and then he'd tow him again, and yeah, that video went viral, but this is at a time. This was a few years ago, by the way, at a time that we hadn't seen these massive drones. Like nobody was doing these things. But I mean, now it's easy because you have those batteries. You could just make, bigger motors and bigger props and right, and then bigger batteries and stuff, enough to pick up, a couple 100 pounds. So, yeah, I remember that was a cool video. We were all like, man, and I think it got millions and millions of views. I don't remember, but he was always good at doing that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think it's pretty awesome. I wanted to do something like that with my Mavic too, because the one that I crashed, I told you I crashed one. It was with trees and branches. The cameras don't see those very well, so I crashed it. And I crashed it just enough for the camera get ruined, but not enough for like the drone itself. So the drone itself is fine and it flies. So I thought like, oh, we probably could do some cool tests with this thing. Like, like maybe try to power it with 18650s, and it don't have to be like a giant battery. Because they can lift quite a bit, right? Like those have a pretty good payload capacity. I think it'll pick up like, I don't know, half a pound or something. It would be cool. I wonder how long it would go.
Yeah, I know. I've
And
seen
you can,
people doing like range extensions on them and stuff. And, as you said earlier, it's like at some point you're adding more batteries, but you're also adding more weight. So you're at a higher throttle. And I know if you look at like specific motor prop combos, you can look at the graphs where it's like thrust versus efficiency. And you can see, it's definitely more efficient at low throttle. And as you go higher on throttle, your efficiency just decreases.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess sort of finding that sweet spot. But I imagine DJI has probably already spec'd it out. Something you could do though is you could gut out the inside and then stick in like an open source flight controller and stick an FPV camera in there and take it to a race. That'd be so funny. Just show up with your DJI,
Yes.
shred up the course. That'd be so funny.
Wait, because these are super slow and compared to others, right? Like,
Yeah, everyone would be like, "Who is this guy?" So
but it won't be stable. It'll look like the racing drones look. Which one? What is your favorite controller or flight controller?
yeah, okay. So in terms of flight controller, I feel obligated to say Seal Racing because they used to sponsor me.
Oh,
So
there you go.
Racing
Seal
F7
Racing.
was pretty good. I messed around with some of the HDLRC stuff. Their 20 by 20 stack a while ago was pretty good. I'm not up to date on like the latest stuff. As I said, I haven't really flown in about a year, or at least raced in about a year competitively. I've kind of gone out to the park and stuff, but that would be something to ask my drone racing friends. In terms of the stuff here, I think I'm running. Oh geez, I think this is actually the Helios F7. I think they actually went out of business, so you can't really get those anymore. And this is Acon 6S. This is a 6S 5-inch in a 20x20 stack, which I thought was pretty incredible.
Wow.
But yeah, anyways, I'm not exactly sure what's most recent, but whatever this is worked pretty well while I was using it and haven't burnt out one yet.
So this is like a year old technology, and it's already kind of obsolete.
Yeah, I mean, even in a couple months, everyone's just constantly upgrading. So
that's crazy. Yeah. So the stuff that I was looking at, that was like a few years ago. I want to say, damn, when was that? Yeah, I want to say it's like 4 years ago or something. Yeah, it's all stuff that is obsolete. But I remember there were some controllers that were really hard to program. They have too many options, too many settings. You'd have to like do all kinds of profiles for all kinds of things. And then there's some that were kind of already preset so that you could just kind of fly around. And I remember I chose one of those, and like I said, it was still pretty hard. Like I just couldn't control. I could never get the thing. I don't think I'm good at that. Like I used to. Did you guys like video games?
Yeah.
Obviously. Okay, so
I mean, back competitively.
Okay, back in my day, the big thing was Halo, right? And then Halo, when the online thing came out, Halo, that Xbox Live or whatever, and then we would just go crazy. And I remember just being so hooked on that, and you're just for hours and hours and hours, and then at night, and then next thing you know, the sun's coming out, and you're like trying. But I always sucked. Like I never got any good at it. Like, I always go the wrong way. Like I could never get like left, right. I don't know. Like, my motor skills are not that great, I guess. And maybe that's why flying that drone was so hard for me, and I just couldn't figure it out. I eventually just gave up. I'm like, screw that. I'm just gonna buy a stupid.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I still can't really play like FPS games are still difficult for me. The controls. So I mean, like some of those professional gamers are just on a different level. But drone racing, I don't know. I guess it just sort of clicked. I'd encourage you to try it again. A lot of progress has been made since you probably last built one, and I imagine it's a lot easier now, especially with the configuration and stuff like Betaflight, Emu Flight, Butterflight, all of it. Basically, just like plug it in, follow 30-minute tutorial, do some soldering, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, I might. Yeah, it's weird because, like, when you get my age, you have so many interests, and then you have so little time that you're like, well, there's a couple things that I can think of that I think, like CNC machining. I don't know if you guys ever. I'm like, it's so tempting. Like, I want to get a little machine. I can make parts, like any part. Instead of 3D, because the 3D printers is a thing that like almost everybody got into. And that was another thing that I was afraid into getting, because I'm like, I don't have time for that rabbit hole. Like, because it's just, the learning curve is high. Like, you build it, but then you got to tweak it. Like, now it's like months of tweaking. You got to do the thing. And I had a friend that was going through that, and he was printing nonstop. Like, every day he was doing 7-hour prints. And then, he come home from work and it's like, it didn't work. It skipped a few lines and the part's all like warped. And so, I can stick it on from here. All kinds of little issues, right? And then adjusting the temperature of the bed, the flow, the thing that I'm like, it's cool. But then you just go down that rabbit hole. And I tend to be like obsessive, obviously, right? Like, because no normal person do what I do, I guess. So I kind of now I'm afraid to like head certain ways, because I'm like, no, I gotta go. I'm doing this thing, and these are kind of distractions. That's weird. You guys ever have that, or you at this point you're just like going for it? If you have some interest in a thing, you're just going for it.
I mean, I'm very that way. Like I am very obsessive, and if I get started on something, like I'll have a hard time focusing on things that I'm supposed to be doing. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's like whenever some kind of new kind of technology comes out, like 3D printing, it's really the hackers and the people who are like really into making things that like get their hands on it first. And then, as those people develop the expertise and the knowledge about how those technologies work, over time it becomes more mainstream. And then you get companies popping up that are making those kinds of consumer products that were once kind of more of a niche, like DIY kind of technology,
Yeah.
I think 3D printing is like a really good example of that.
Yeah. Have you guys gotten into that? Either of you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
we've been doing printing for a long time.
Oh, that's right. You had a tool to take the yes. Okay, so so for those watching, the ES4s are these little scooters. They have a stock and they have a battery that's cylindrical in there, and they shove it in there, and they have this like little thing with like a puck that attaches with seals in it. But you gotta twist it, right, to get it out, and it requires some special tool. I mean, we're just using like screwdrivers or something, but you 3D printed one.
Yeah, I mean, ours is just plastic, and it probably has a life cycle of maybe fixing 10 scooters. But for your average Joe who's just fixing up a couple scooters that they picked up at an auction, it's just fine. But obviously on an industrial scale, it doesn't work. It was actually inspired because I saw a similar tool in one of Ninebot's videos, which I'm not sure is around now. I just came across it in the depths of YouTube, and I was like, whoa, that's a cool tool. Why don't I just design and 3D print something like that? And obviously theirs was like steel or whatever, and industrial grade. But I guess the 3D printed one works sort of just as well as long as you're only using it a couple times.
Now imagine if you had a desktop CNC mill.
Yeah, for sure.
You're writing the G code and you're on the thing, and you're printing now. I mean, not printing, you're milling chunks of aluminum. See, that's a thing that it's so tempting, but then you talk to like people that do it, and it's like, wait a minute, you need these 2 toolboxes worth of tools, and then you need this machine, and you're like, what? No, I don't have time for this. Have you guys ever used eMachine Shop? So
yeah, I mean, my school has a machine shop.
Oh, just a machine shop in general.
No. So there's a website. It's called emachineshop.com, and they give you free software. And wait a minute, is the software downloadable? Oh, you don't even need to download it. Now they have a browser-based 3D like CAD designing tool, and then you draw the parts, and then you hit a button, and it calculates how much it would cost you, depending on the materials, on the surface roughness, all stuff, and then it even estimates how long it would be, and it's usually like between 2 weeks and a month and 30 days or something. And then
they make it for you, or
they make it for you. You just click the button, and then 2 weeks later, here comes the parts.
Yeah.
And by the way, they do like crazy parts, not just like rough parts, like with water jets or laser or whatever. Like they 5-axis milling like aluminum with like super tight tolerances and different finishes and like everything. Like they're all out there, and it's usually cheap. Like you can get one part if you want it. One part, right? But it'll cost you like, I don't know, $400 or $500, or you can get 100 for like $400 or $500. That's how that works, because it's all in the setup. Oh man, yeah, you guys should check that out. Although don't go crazy and just start ordering all kinds of parts. So like, I'll give you an example. I needed my own little gorilla, pod or whatever, like. And so I designed all these parts there, and then I just made them. I made thousands of them, and I built like hundreds of these, and I was starting to sell them, and I was trying to do a crowd-funded thing, but it didn't fund. So then I just kind of did it on my own. But like, there's so many parts that you could design there. It's crazy. So if you guys ever need aluminum parts or steel, or I think they actually do Delrin. Actually, they do anything. I mean, if those mills can pretty much cut anything.
That's cool, yeah.
eMachine
Yeah,
shop.
that's awesome.
Yeah, but you have played with mills and lathes and stuff.
Yeah, so I was actually like during high school, all 4 years, I was on a robotics team, an FRC team, and every year we would build a new robot, and so yeah, the robots were like aluminum mostly. So we had machine shop sponsors, and they would make our parts for us. So we would go to their shops, and they would show us the machines. And so like we got to see CNC mills and like all kinds of crazy machines. And that was definitely like one of the highlights of my high school career, is like seeing like big machine shops like that, you know, them making parts for us and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you're watching the machines that make the machines, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool, right? Like, you know, I was lucky enough to be invited to SpaceX here in Hawthorne, and it's pretty crazy in there. Like, you go in there and like they have these crazy machines. Like, there's the one machine that is making the so they're making essentially those tanks out of carbon fiber. So they're laying all these like sheets of carbon, and then they're putting epoxy, I guess, and stuff, and then they like cut them, and they have all these like little marks that they laser etch on those sheets, and then that's how they guide them, because they're making these round surfaces, so they're cutting the sheets in ways and stuff, and so they're laying them out there, and the person's just following like a preset thing, right? They have that like right here. And then over here, they have like the rocket engine, like literally like 15 feet away. There's like the rocket engine that's doing the thing. And then we went into a room that's further down the line. Oh yeah, and then at the very end, they're welding the giant tanks, and they're not using like typical welders. They're using a thing that like just vibrates and rubs them or something. I don't remember.
It's like cold welding.
Yeah. It's like a cutter. It's like a thing that's spinning between the two, and it basically melts the metal. And it's just they're going up the entire tank, the rocket, and it's doing that. And then by the time they're done, like you can't even see that it's welded there. Pretty crazy stuff, right? And then they took us into this room, and they had 3D printers, but they weren't like they were like the bigger ones. And then the guy handed me some parts made out of steel. And they're 3D printed parts. And you're like,
yeah, that's incredible.
What the hell? And he goes, yeah, you see that engine over there? He's like, this 3D printed part.
They're 3D yeah, and what's incredible about like companies like that is since they're doing such advanced manufacturing, they have to invent their own machines.
A lot of stuff.
Because like like they don't even have machines like that already made. Like they have to make their own machines to manufacture their parts.
Yeah, it's definitely cool in there. Like if you want to get inspired, going to see like SpaceX. Because it's happening there. And you would think like it's all like in separate. I always think like NASA is like, oh, there's that building where they make the tanks over there. Oh, over here it's like where they do the software. Oh, over there's where like it's, and there's like that one's in that city and that one's over there in, Florida, and the other one's in some other state. Like with Hawthorne, it's like in SpaceX, it's all right there. Like it's one big giant room and they're all working there, and you could see half a rocket build over there, and you could see the engines over here. And you can see like, and they have a mission control room there, right? That once, and it's right there. And then when you sit to eat lunch, you're sitting on a thing that you could see all this stuff like over. It's cool, like it's crazy. And then they have a capsule sticking from the bottom of the ceiling, so like one of the first capsules that went to space, and it's all burnt, and it's got all the soot of the rockets and stuff of reentry. It's pretty cool to go there. But I got to see some of those parts, the 3D printed parts, and one of the parts had like it almost seemed like a filter for like liquids. You ever seen it? Like it's got like a tiny little mesh. This thing was
and
so
it was like metal, or
and it was metal. Like I don't know, it's pretty heavy. I mean, enough to be able to sustain combustion. I guess they make those little rockets out of them, right? But it had this it had like these little fins that was going over like an inch, and you could see through it, and it's so fine you could see light coming through it. So that was the reason why he handed me that part, is like he was showing me the resolution of these prints or whatever, and you're like, damn, that's pretty crazy.
Remake dollar, titanium, aluminum, all the good stuff.
Yeah, we need to get some of those. Again, a rabbit hole, right? How much time does it take to master one of those? Probably quite a bit, right?
Probably a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of have to specialize in it.
I mean,
There's
I'm
probably
sure they
people-
hire like multiple people just to run those machines, right?
Yeah, it's like they hire the best people to do the thing. By the way, I remember being there and asking them about Starlink because they had just announced it, and I was like, oh my god, you guys are sending satellites? Like what the hell, you know? And it seems like it's so long ago, but it wasn't. It was just like a year ago or so. And now I just pre-ordered my thing. Like the pre-orders just opened up, and I signed
Wow.
up for it. And like, I'm gonna probably by the end of this year, I'll be getting my internet, you know, through one of those satellites. That's pretty crazy, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool what Starlink is doing. Like the fact that the speed that you can get from a Starlink satellite is pretty incredible.
Yeah. Do you, out of the top of your head, you know the latency numbers that they're saying that are gonna get?
I don't know the
supposedly?
latency. I did see that the speed was like 150 megabits per second, but like don't quote me on that. I
Yeah.
have no idea.
Yeah, I think they're surpassing even what they thought it was gonna be or something. Even though they only have certain amount of satellites. Or, yeah, I think it's gonna be a game changer. Like in my area where I'm at, like here we have decent internet, but at home, which I'm like just a quarter mile away, there isn't. Like for residential here in the city, they don't have anything decent, and there's only one provider, so they kind of have a monopoly,
Hmm.
and they suck. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, you bastards, just wait till the end of this year. I'm gonna drop you like a bad habit, right? Like, because Elon's coming to the rescue. Yeah, I'll be getting my internet through satellite. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I guess they got to make a profit somehow, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they got to start making a profit and to fund
yeah.
all their research.
Well, that's he said that's how he's gonna fund Mars. It's through that. Because imagine everybody's could potentially be his customer now. If you're unhappy with your service provider, now you could always just get. Oh, and then my brother and I were discussing about. You guys know about that radio silence area down there, like on the east side of the country, where they have this giant radio telescope.
Yeah, I think I read about it once in an article, but that's my extent. That's the extent of my
It's
knowledge.
it's a huge area. It's like 100 miles by 100 miles, so it's like a giant square, and there's no radio signals allowed there. Like no Wi-Fi, no cell phones, nothing. And then he's like going like, how are they gonna do it through there? And I'm like, I don't know. They're gonna program it so that whenever they're up top, they turn off or something. Right? They have to. This is like a thing.
Yeah. Or maybe the orbits don't go like over that area.
No, but they're kind of in a grid, so they're always going. Like they're going, because you always have to have 3 satellites within reach of each other. I think for continuous, uninterrupted service, right? So
Yeah.
I think there's some that are going this way, I think, and then some that are going this way. So there's 2 satellites, right? And they're kind of in a grid. So that means there always going to be at least 3 satellites that are within those 100 miles, probably more. 100 miles it's a lot. 100 miles.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think they're just gonna program to turn off whenever they're on, like geofence that area, right? You're like, when you're here, you're not broadcasting.
Yeah.
No
I
one
mean, I
can
know
have
I
service.
heard that like astronomers weren't happy about the Starlink satellites
That's right.
because apparently they're interfering with like telescopes on Earth.
Have you guys ever seen satellites?
I mean, not.
With the-
Yeah. I mean, I've just seen pictures, but
With the naked eye? You never
I think I've
saw-
seen one float. You can kind of. I have that app where you can like look at the stars or whatever, right? You
Oh,
can
yeah,
see
yeah.
like the ISS, and I don't know. I think it used to have little like you could see the space junk too, like expended boosters and stuff like that floating around. You obviously couldn't see them with your naked eye, and we didn't have a good enough telescope to look at them. But I don't know where that app went. Now it seems to just show the ISS, and then occasionally you can see the glint of something shiny flying across the sky, which I've heard is a satellite, but I don't really know.
Yeah.
So.
I live close to a place that's called Joshua Tree. And it's up in the high desert, and there's some leakage. There's some light. There's like a little town close by there that usually ruins everything. But if you go there at sunset, just when the light goes down and there's still light up there, so just think about it, because it's only for like an hour, right? So the sun is just like under, so it's still lighting up all this stuff. You can see them, and you're like, oh my god, there's all kinds of them up there. Like you literally could see three at a time, and then one of them's going this way, one's going that way, and they're clear as day. You know, it's like you could tell because they're moving at a very constant speed, and they're moving faster than airplanes, and they're not blinking, and you're just like, whoa, that's just, and you're like, there's thousands of them up there. Like, how is that possible? You're like, oh, so they're up there. Like, you don't see them. You only see them while the sun is shining. Well, like the sun's not on you, but it's still up there. But as soon as that sun goes down, then they disappear because they're tiny. So yeah, I don't know. I know that they were complaining about it, but who's looking up with visual telescopes now?
I mean, I don't know. There's probably a bunch of random science going on in that field.
You think so?
I mean, I think the best telescopes are like satellite telescopes, like ones that are orbiting, like the Hubble.
There you go. Or the radio telescopes. Okay, but the big one just fell. Did you guys see that video or the one in Puerto Rico? That like
sad.
Yeah, that's so crazy, huh? They have this one in Puerto Rico. It was giant. It was like a giant dish, and the thing fell, and
like earthquake just structurally collapsed. You know,
no,
I think one of the cables snapped.
Yeah,
right?
So they have these cables. It rusted. It literally just rusted away. Yeah, I think it was like some crazy amount, like 100 tons or something that the center cluster of instruments had. And so there was 3 towers, and it had a cluster of cables. It was like 7 cables or something going, like suspending this thing. And I want to say I saw a video of like someone that went to it like 3 years ago. And they were walking up there, and then the guy that's giving the tour goes, "Oh yeah, look, that's the cable that started coming undone." He goes, "Yeah, 2 weeks ago, it's just like it unraveled and it make all this noise and stuff." And so 3 years ago, it started, like the cable started ripping apart because they were so old.
Yeah.
And I guess nobody fixed it, and it went to the point where this did. And the crazy thing is that there was that footage from a drone. They were supposedly surveying to see how, what the extent of the damage. Because I think a few days before this happened, it did it again, like an unravel or something, or one of the cables ripped or something. So they got a drone, and they were like kind of looking, and they were hovering in one of the towers. And as they're up there, the whole thing comes down. You should check it out. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty dramatic video. You're like, what?
Yeah, that's really sad, though.
Like, it's sad.
I mean, it was such a big telescope.
Yeah, and then you can geek out into tech because on that one video that I saw, the guy's explaining everything about the radios and the power that the radios use to transmit and to receive those things or whatever. And you're like, this is like pretty advanced, pretty crazy, like specialized equipment that they had there. Someone spent money. Well, actually, tax money, right? I think it was tax money.
Yeah, it was government run, probably.
Probably billions of dollars. And to literally just let it just rust, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So we don't have that. We don't have that telescope anymore. So what about the future, guys? Where are you guys gonna go? What are you guys gonna take, or where can we expect to see you guys in the near future with your endeavors and your projects?
I guess my future is pretty open-ended right now. Like, I don't even know where I'm going to go to college, and I've applied to schools across the country. So I could end up, on the East Coast, West Coast, in the middle, and anywhere in between. So I don't really know. In terms of like what I want to do, I guess pursue engineering. I've started a couple cool new projects. I guess your channel sort of inspired me. I purchased a 1976 Fiat 124 Spider. So I'm in the process of building that. And hopefully I'm going to convert that to electric once I graduate and I know what I'm doing. And then hopefully also when Elon Musk releases his million-mile battery and, those start to circulate, battery technology improves a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's
we've done a 124.
Oh, really?
It's if you go, I uploaded a video. We broke it. So after it was built, then I decided to do a video, and I went on a ride with the guy that owned it, right? And then he was trying to be funny and showing off, and he broke it on camera because it was a very powerful car after that, right? And so he was trying to spin tires, and so I have a video of that on my channel. I wonder if it's in his channel. No, I think it's only in my channel. So yeah, if you search for Jay Garcia Fiat 124 Fiat. There's one there, so you can get further inspired if you want to. This is a cool little car. What color is yours?
Orange, and it's a mess. You know,
Orange.
I just cut a hole in the floor yesterday to replace the driver's side seatbelt, which had a mounting nut, which had sort of rusted through. So, you know, had I not checked under the carpet and gotten into a crash, I was going like flying out as the seatbelt just released. So all sorts of repairs to be done on it, but I think it's going to be a really awesome project. And I know Fiats are known for like, fix it again, Tony, or whatever, right? But I think, maintaining the car is going to be half the fun, with the internal combustion engine. And then once I finally, have the money to and the skills necessary to upgrade it, maintaining the electric powertrain as well.
Yeah, I think moving forward, conversions are cheaper than ever, right? Right now you could do like a battery that used to cost you like $20,000 like 5 years ago. Now you can pick it up for like $3,000 or something. And of course, as more Model 3s and as more of every other different car that's electric, then it becomes much, much cheaper and stuff. Oh yeah, Brian says electric cars are too powerful. Fiat Spider 124. That's the title of the video of my channel. They did a really good job. It's a red one. Did it have dual motors? I don't say maybe it had dual motors.
Oh, wow.
And then a big Tesla battery in the back. It's a really cool car. And it went really fast and it broke axles. That's how powerful it was. So Fiat 500. Yeah, there you go. You should convert it. You totally should. Yeah, I mean, there's no problem. I think it's fun even doing them, messing around with the engine. Pistons and carburetors, whatever all that ancient stuff used to.
Yeah, I mean mine's pre-fuel injection, so it truly is like a mechanical device. It's like,
oh, there you go.
Everything going in there is just mechanical parts moving around, which I think is pretty fascinating. And I've taken apart a couple weed whacker engines. Andy and I dismantled a weed whacker. Was this like 5th grade or 6th grade or something? I don't know.
Yeah,
and we strapped it to the back of an electric scooter. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I rebuilt a couple engines since then, but I think working on a car engine would be pretty awesome.
Yeah. Is that how you guys made the gas powered scooter?
Yeah, we took apart a weed whacker. We got from a junkyard, and then we kind of just like cleaned it up and got it running. And then we tried to strap it to a back of a like old electric scooter. Unfortunately, the problem is that at the time we didn't have access to great machining. And we didn't know how to machine anything. So, we didn't really have a way to mount the sprocket to the end of the weed whacker motor, at all. Okay. So, we kind of just bolted it on and it didn't really work. But, it was a cool concept. And it made a lot of sense.
we got going on, a flat road, but we also didn't have a centrifugal clutch. So, that was
so we didn't have a way to, the only way to stop was just to lift the scooter off the ground.
It was always engaged.
Yeah.
It was like the motorcycles have this thing that is called the suicide clutch. You guys know about this? Like no. Old time scooter motorcycles. So it was a clutch that in order to engage it, right, to disengage the engine, you have to step on it, right? And so when you would come, you have to do that to come to a red light.
Right.
So that means your foot has to be on this thing. So if your motorcycle tipped that way, then you literally have to take your foot off the clutch, and then your bike. So you either fell or you would go. So it's called a suicide clutch.
That's a great name. That's really funny though. I did not know that was a thing.
There was motorcycles that had that back in the day. So you'd have to always lean one way when you would come to a red light, because if you were the other way, you couldn't.
You were gone.
You needed 2 feet or something. Eventually they changed that, and then centrifugal. Yeah, that's but that's you could have made a death scooter or something. It's such a weird thing. I was talking to my friend Michael Bream from EV West, and he told me that way back in the day they made an not electric scooter, skateboard. They made a gas-powered skateboard.
A gas-powered skateboard.
Yes. So it was
Wow.
basically similar to that. They got like a little engine from a weed whacker or something, and they did this way back in the day, like in the late '80s or something.
Mhm.
And they rode around, and I'm like, how come these never took off? Like, I guess they were not that great. They were like loud and noisy, and then you would burn your skin every time you touched the stupid little engine. Right? They had problems. They had too many issues or something.
Yeah.
But people have been doing this for a long time. They've been putting motors in anything. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I guess on little vehicles they didn't. They were not compelling. That's
I
why
mean,
they-
yeah, you're probably using a two-stroke too, so it's not, you don't get the practicality of gas where it's like you just go to a station and fill up, right? You have to carry around some oil, mix your oil, and then fill it up, you know? So, you know, I think, at least for me, the main limitations of electric vehicles is just the range and the fact that you can't just, 5 seconds, just pop that gas nozzle in there, fill it up, right? But I guess if you have to mix gas, that really takes away all the appeal of a gas engine. And it's just polluting and, spitting
And
out
it
black
stinks.
smoke and
yeah,
obnoxious, although also cool depending on who you're asking. So
yeah, because you see it every once in a while, right? The little motorcycles, the little bicycles that have the little engine. You hear them. You hear them more than you see them.
yeah,
go by.
exactly.
Yeah.
You hear them coming from miles away. Sometimes you don't even see them.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm gonna get into some e-bike builds here soon because we have all those wheels and we have the batteries, we have all the things, so we're like, we gotta build some e-bikes because these scooters are pretty cool and we're running around. Oh, by the way, that video where when you talk about that, you say that you can open them up. You basically can hack to have more power, but then you're like, don't do this because you're gonna burn your MOSFETs, right? Essentially, so they're pretty much maxed out to be able to be reliable. Is that what you found in all your?
Yeah, with the current
Experimenting?
controllers, though, I've heard some people are using 12S instead of 10S on the motors. So you have higher voltage. So according to like whatever not Kirchhoff's law. Oh no, freaking what is it? It's Anyways, where it's I squared times R, that's your power dissipated by the resistance. You have a higher voltage, so you have less current, so you have less heat, so it's more efficient. And you can also, if you use higher quality FETs and some VESC, 4.2 hardware or whatever, right, or 6.1 or whatever the one that is that can do hundreds of amps, you can apparently get the motors to run at a couple kilowatt safely.
What?
Yeah, and normally they're like 800, right? So.
Is that what they're rated? I don't even know what they're rated because I thought like you could always just also use like a VESC, right?
Mhm.
And then you can really get some power, right? Because they're running those are like 12S, I think. 12? No, I think they're running at higher, 60 volts. Yeah, I think 12, 13.
Yeah, that's 12.
12S, yeah. So I thought like, you could always just do that if you wanted to have like a. But you're doing it with the included hardware in there, and then obviously it's to the point where where you were burning them up, right? So
Yeah, just cheap, low quality FETs,
That's why you were warning people to. Wait, so do you have a sheet with the error codes or no?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just found one online where I just Googled 9-bot error codes and then, found it buried somewhere. And I think you can find one pretty readily now if you search it up. There's like a couple sites that have them.
Yeah, we found that they were all like kind of different. Like some of the codes that we're getting, they're not in any of the lists. And we're like, how are we special? Like, how are we getting the special code that no one's ever gotten and they'll figure out? But I think it's because it's a different versions of the software probably too, right? Yeah. I don't know how popular
this is. There's a bunch that said just like undefined. Well, it's like it's not very helpful if your error code is undefined,
Yes. Yeah.
So.
That's cool. Yeah, and I got one guy that was asking me if I would help him to do a 12S conversion. And I thought like, I don't know, that's probably not that easy. I go, you have to use the thing and it communicates to the thing with the BMS, right? So it's like, it's not as easy as that. And then he goes, no, yes, it is. And he sent me a link to one of the forums that had someone that was talking about it. And I think they even had like a kit that they were selling where you could do it, right? Because you had a kit where you can install an inside battery outside, right? Wasn't that what you were doing? Okay. Did that work out?
Yeah, that actually worked. It was just because we had a surplus of internal batteries. For some reason, all the external batteries died, and I don't know why. Surprisingly, the external batteries appear to be waterproof, and the internal ones aren't. But for some reason, a lot of the external batteries also just decided to kick the bucket for no reason. When I opened them up, a couple of the cells were dead. So questionable build quality, maybe different cell supplier, unsure. They look the same. But yeah, I had an excess of internal batteries. Like, why don't I just repurpose these as external ones?
Yeah.
So.
And then you were connecting them in parallel, but wait, and then you said no. You changed the way you were connecting it from first, right?
Yeah. So first time I tried to connect it through the external battery port because it just has like a UART and it looked exactly the same, or at least on the schematic, as like the connection for the internal battery. And I was like, what are the odds? Maybe they run the same firmware and the software won't be able to tell which battery is which, and it'll just accept it as an external battery. But the scooter I originally tested it on, little did I know, had a broken external battery port. And I don't know why I thought I checked it beforehand. So I was like, for a couple months, I thought, you can't wire the internal batteries through the external battery port. But then I forget, someone commented on my video and was like, yes, you can. And they sent me a photo and I was like, holy crap, you can. So then I tried it again with a different scooter and I was like, sure enough, it works. So from there, I couldn't find the connector that plugged into the little proprietary, double XT30 and then the little 4 pins for your charge and, TX and RX. Yeah. So I had to design my own for that to adapt to the internal battery, now mounted externally, to connect it in.
So that works.
But it worked out in the end.
Oh, so that works, and the controller can't tell if what type of battery's outside? Oh,
nope.
Okay. Yeah, they're kind of simple. These are first generation scooters. The later generation, like I said, they got a lot harder to hack and a lot harder to. But yeah, these ones are pretty simple. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I saw, and you even had like a little holders, right? Like little things so you can strap it onto your scooter and stuff. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm sure a lot of people are running around. So is that one of your most popular videos?
I think the scooter hacking, yeah, probably. That's at least what got us a lot of our subscribers. For some reason, our channel first, we just started, remember, Andy, that one summer where you started getting subscribers out of nowhere? And I don't even know where it was from. I think it might have been like the potato cannon or something. But like all of a sudden, we just got like 400 subscribers in like 2 months, and they just came out of nowhere. So that could also...
It might have just been like random chance, like our videos started showing up more often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that guide is very useful for anyone that wants to know. And it wasn't easy, like you said. People think like, oh, just make videos, man. Like, how hard can it be? You're just making that YouTube money. I'm like, you guys don't get it. Like, it's really hard to make these videos. Like, you got to write them.
It takes a lot of planning.
You got to plan, especially if you're building, like a build video, you got to do the thing and then record it and then edit it, right? And then it's before you like wrote the thing, and it's a lot of work. I just did one, and it took me a couple days to do just a simple review of a stupid battery box, right? Like, people don't get it, like, so yeah, whenever you do, and yours was pretty detailed, it was pretty long. You like laid it all out, the tools that you're gonna need, right? The software that you're gonna have to download. Pretty useful for people that are kind of lost and looking into that. I'm like, what do I want to do? Go read like 20 pages of some forum, or do I want to watch your video? I will watch your video.
Yeah, there's just something that doesn't quite compare to being like spoon-fed information by YouTube. It's just it's so nice.
Yes. And then you put it yourself like going really fast around your neighborhood, whatever. You're like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to get with these scooters. So anyways, yeah, we're doing a bunch of these scooters. We got hundreds of them, and we're just selling them, getting them to people. But we're kind of only selling them to DIY people because we made it hard. We're like, I'm not going to do the work for you. You're going to have to do the work. I'm show you how to do it. I'll do a little video. And I did the same thing. I'm like, here are the tools. I think I copied your format. I'm like, here's the tool. Oh, because they're all, by the way, they're all Torx, like tamper-proof. And they even have one that is a tamper-proof hex. And there's only one. Oh, man, we lost one.
Yeah, I think Andy's computer might have died.
Oh, yeah, maybe because of the time. Oh, maybe it ran out of battery or something. because we've been at it for a while.
They'll probably be back in a sec here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so that was pretty useful. And I think that's why you guys are getting views there. So, yeah, just keep at it. I know you're busy and stuff, but it really helps people that are trying to follow your steps. I know that's part of the reason why I do it. It's like people tell me that because they saw one of my videos that they bought a thing and now they're putting a battery in their house or they build a car. So sometimes it's crazy. And sometimes I'm like, I've been surprised at the people that have been watching my videos. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I work at Tesla, I work at SpaceX. That's the reason why I was at SpaceX. It's because one of the engineers watches my videos and they wanted to talk to me and they go, hey, I'll come to SpaceX, we'll talk right here. So we talked over lunch. Like, that's pretty crazy. And I'm like, where's Elon? Oh, he's over there. He's in his office. You're like crazy, So, yeah, you never know who's watching. I'm
a big believer in the open source knowledge base too, like making sure all of my projects are readily accessible. And, when possible, I try to document them because at least for me, trying to learn the basics was sort of challenging because there's all sorts of these cool projects out there, but there's just, for someone who like me who doesn't have a background, a degree in anything, right? It's difficult to get those basics down. And something that I've been trying to do, at least through the past few videos, is like, start from ground zero and, through these videos, trying to describe my thought process and stuff like that, maybe others will be able to like, sort of pursue it if they're interested as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Have you ever seen that? Have you seen that thing that Elon did? Like, it was an interview and they asked him how he hires people.
No.
He said that he's not necessarily looking for degrees. He's not looking for, he's looking for evidence of exceptional achievement or talent. Mm-hmm. And he goes, the only way to see that is sometimes through like existing projects that they've done. So, yeah, you never know, right? Because you're like, oh, wait, so your diploma or your degree matters less than if you have done a thing already and you could show it to him. He's like, there you go. You got the job because you obviously, know what you're talking about because you've done it, not because you read some book or whatever, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Colin Furze is a shining example of that. Like, wasn't he a plumber before he started building all this crazy stuff? And, now he's building, jet engines out of turbos and pulse jet engines and, all sorts of crazy, cool mechanical devices that are just like so outlandish that it's like, wow, I didn't even, who would even think to build this thing, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he's got some cool stuff. And the way he goes about it, too, that guy's amazing. He's got so much, like, enthusiasm for the stuff that he's going to build. And he's cutting and welding. Yeah, it's like, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool what he's doing. I haven't seen a lot of his videos, but I've seen some. Oh, is that it?
Sorry.
Time for dinner.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'd say we call it. Look, it's 6:30 already. Yeah, too bad we lost Andy, but
he's back. I think he's here. He
is?
Just popped in.
Oh, he did. Oh,
did we lose him again?
No, he's in
the room. And he's back.
Oh, there we go. He's back.
Hey, sorry about that. My internet has been cutting on and off like all day.
Starlink.
Exactly.
You should get Starlink. I need Starlink. Starlink is gonna be. I don't know if it's gonna be pretty stable, but it's gonna be pretty fast. So.
Hopefully stable. Hopefully more stable than my internet right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is going to be more stable than my internet. My internet goes out constantly, and it's just long enough to cause frustration, but not long enough for you to get on the phone and be like, hey, where's stupid thing, And they always try to blame your stuff anyways. Every time you do that to your ISP, they always be like, oh, it's your computer. Check your equipment. And I'm like, my equipment is fine. It's your stupid connection. Like,
funny how everything changes too when a competitor like Sonic shows up in the neighborhood and they're like, oh god, now we actually have to serve our clientele.
Yeah, and these bastards, the reason why there's no a competition here in my town is because supposedly the townspeople, whatever, the people on the council or whatever, the town, they own stock in that company of like Verizon. Well,
Talk about conflict of interest.
Okay, so they don't
for real.
let anyone else in there. And so if some other company has to come in here, like Verizon, was it Verizon? I don't know. Fios. Yeah, Verizon Fios wanted to come in because it's the digital one that has the... And they had to pay 100% to core the streets in the city. So that's why they never did it, because they're like, that investment is going to take, usually I think like cities will share the cost or something, but these ones are like, no. And they're like, why not? Oh, it's because you guys are making... Yeah, it's a conflict of interest. So I'm like, screw these guys. We're gonna beat them at their game. Come on, Elon. Hurry up with this stuff. All right, guys. Well, let's call it very nice meeting you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much for inviting us. This is
really thanks for having us. This was great.
Hey, no. You guys are talented. You guys are the future, definitely. You guys are starting out. We're like old people. We're dying pretty soon. So it's gonna be up to you guys to take over. And you guys are getting a head start, I think, like you guys are staying busy, making videos, creating projects. That's a cool thing. I think there should be more of that stuff. So yeah, hopefully we can get, what is your channel so that people can go and watch it and join in your other socials if you want to?
Yeah, it's Banana Science is the name of our channel.
Banana
Science.
Science.
The top result if you search it up. Okay, the quick and dirty story behind that name is, like we wanted to start a YouTube channel and we were trying to come up with names, and like for some reason I just said Banana Science and they were like, okay, sure.
Oh, there you go. Nothing to do.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened, right?
No, that's what happened. I mean, this is like us sitting around, eating dinner at like 6th grade. So would we change the channel name? I personally wouldn't. I don't know about you, Andy. I think it's pretty good, but it's random.
We should just keep it.
Now it flows. Yeah. No, it flows. It's good. What is it? Who knows? Who cares? It's banana. It's bananas. Banana Science. You could say, look, later in life, you'll change the story to some more outrageous, more clever thing.
I'm sure.
And it'll be that.
And now it's been documented here, so I can go.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, that might be, but that's the cool thing, because then those people will have to do their homework and find this video, and then call you on it. And then if they do, then you're like, okay. Yes. Hey, thank you, Future, again. Whenever you guys have a project that you guys deem worthy of the world to know, let us know. We'll have you back and stuff.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the opportunity, JJ. This was great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And good luck in the future. Hopefully, you guys find your way and stay busy and stay healthy. No frat parties? No, just kidding.
No frat parties.
Double mask. That's what I heard. All right, guys. Thank you.
All right. See ya. Nice talking.
Okay, bye.
Bye.